think we'll get started. Some people will join us late. Yeah. So, and there's Tony. Welcome, Tony, and Robert, and Peg. So we're recording this, and we're gonna use it. We're gonna put it on our website. So, be mindful what you share. If you feel like it's too private, I'm just letting people know that it's so we're going to stay on for an hour. We're going to share. We'll introduce ourselves briefly, and then the people that were formerly incarcerated, we will let them hold the floor for maybe about 10 minutes after you get a sense of who we are. Oh, somebody has to. Who's on the phone? Thank you for muting. And this group is between 12 and 15 people, sometimes larger. I'm just going to start. So, Peg, for us frequent people who are on the team, just time us for, I'm just trying to think, my cat wants to get in. 30 seconds. We're just going to go fast. You're on mute. Peg, and you got that, or I got to let my cat in? Okay, you're good. All right, I'll start. 30 seconds. Is that good? So
Yeah,
Peg,
just a minute. I just gotta do something. It'll just take me a second. I gotta unmirror my screen, otherwise the
okay.
numbers are backwards. Okay.
All right, thank you. So today is 10/14/2024, October 14th. I got 30 seconds. So people who are formally in this group for a while just have a short time, and the new people will give them like 5 minutes to start. I was incarcerated. The reason I'm here, that's the question to answer. I started a group out of a program that I was in landmark education called the Team Management and Leadership Program. And it turned into this conference. And I've got some amazing people here supporting me. Got a big team, and we're putting on a conference November 23rd. And I was incarcerated for a year and a half for attempted manslaughter, second degree. You don't have to, actually, I shouldn't have shared that, but that's all right. I was a youth, and I only served a very short time, probably because I was white, and also, yeah, that I imagine helped, but it was an accident. And I have a master's in criminal justice and another master's degree. I'll stop there. I'm over time anyway. Sorry. I'll call. Let's see, Mark.
Good evening. I've always believed that the criminal justice system was unfair and broken, but I never knew how to help or how to be part of a reform until I met Neil. And he really inspired me to be part of this group. And that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Mark. Can you call on someone, Mark?
Karen.
Hi there. My name's Karen Johnson, and the reason I'm here is because my son was incarcerated, and I saw his struggles when he got out, struggling with school and with getting a job and just getting on with his life, and it also in the process of working with him when he was incarcerated, I studied the legal system the juvenile legal system and got interested in it that way. Thank you. Let's see, Denny.
Oh, you can't, your sound is not working.
Okay,
Go.
Robert.
Hi, everyone. Robert Thomas. I live in Denver. I've got a background in community and regional development, and I've been taking recovery meetings into both state and county institutions for quite a while in several different states through the years, and met Neil on some other things we do together, and became enrolled in that we really could make a difference with those that are incarcerated and those getting out. And this conference is a great vehicle to showcase those opportunities. So I will call on Adrian.
Hi, everyone. I'm Adrian Bruce. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I work at Riverbend Maximum Security Prison teaching cognitive behavior. And I'm just here to see what I can do to be a help.
Thank you. You should call on some of the old timers or save the new people. Adrian,
Oh, okay.
I think you got Tony.
Tony, I was just going to say Tony Valeno.
And then Elizabeth after that, and Peg.
Yeah, I'm Tony Villano. I have, like Mark, always felt there was something not fair about the criminal justice system. And recently, about 5 or 6 years ago, got interested in restorative justice after reading Danielle Sered's book. And after that, Sue invited me to this, and I'm been very interested and really love participating and looking forward to the conference. And I guess I'll do Peg.
Great. So I first went into prison at 82. I realized if I had the lives of the people in there, I'd be in worse trouble. Then I sang with the San Quentin Choir from about 94 to 99. Then I started working at Options, where we always had prisoners. And they've developed the occupational mentor program in which we train lifers to be drug and alcohol counselors and the best drug and alcohol counselors in the world. So I love Neil and I love this group, and we're going to make a difference. We are.
Thank you.
Oh, Elizabeth,
Yeah.
please.
Hi, everybody. I'm Elizabeth Waters, and I just joined the group last week. However, I've been very active behind the scenes. I heard Neil's story about this group, and I was very well informed on the justice system, and I found someone who was making a difference out there in it, and I wanted to support him in reaching his goals. So here I am.
Thank you. I think that's everybody except for Julia. So let's give Julia 5 minutes just to see if you yeah, like what brings you here.
Oh, that means I guess I'm the only newcomer?
No, then we have Aku also.
Okay. Well, hello. My name is Julia Gokalp. I'm the community liaison at the Philadelphia Ethical Society. So I'm calling in from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So essentially, in a brief sentence, what the Philadelphia Ethical Society is we're a non-theistic congregation, and we're committed to treating all people as having inherent worth and dignity. We've had projects and speakers related to civic engagement and social justice, and we hosted a reentry simulation over the summer thanks to the help of several of our members. And essentially, we had these different stations of volunteers who basically were the different institutions that people reintegrating into society might have to interact with. And we learned what a convoluted tangle that reentry can be. I learned a lot about the process, and yet we were told that that is just a snapshot of what it's actually like. So how I ended up here is Mark reached out to me. He wanted to go to the event, unfortunately couldn't, but we were able to talk about prisons to partnerships, a little bit about what it is you do, and I'm here in the hope of learning more about your mission, the upcoming conference, the work you do, and how I and my organization might be able to help.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
So Aku, also known as the business doctor, can we give him 5 minutes and then we'll see where we take it from there? I know you
All
can
right.
take 5 minutes. I know that.
Well, thank you, Neil, for the invite. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank everyone for the advocacy and support. I recently was released on May 15th of 2024. I was incarcerated for 23 months for theft. I had never been in trouble before in regards to that. And so it was a shocking experience. While I was incarcerated, I lost my 27-year-old son, sent me into a depression and for about a year. And then when I came out of that depression, God told me it was time for me to do some work and not just be in a state of depression. So while I was incarcerated in Texas at Sanders Estes Unit, I started a program called Better Dads while I was incarcerated. I was given the opportunity to create the curriculum, given the opportunity with the warden's blessing, my own classroom, and I started teaching inmates while I was there. And that program graduated. We had 2 graduations while I was in, and now we're going to be having our 4th one on November 1st in a few weeks. So I'm here to spread knowledge and wisdom about the realities of prison from my own personal experience, because me and my family and my network don't have a lot of experience with prison. So the things that I went through was very traumatizing as a result of that. But I always say it's the best thing that happened to me ever. I go and teach in the prisons every Sunday. I got out May 15th, and then 6 weeks later, I was back in the prison teaching every Sunday. So that's a little bit about my story.
Could you just tell us briefly what you teach?
Oh, I teach healthy relationships, financial literacy, communication skills, personal development, spirituality, physical health, mental health, emotional health, unlearning negative behaviors, and then how to make it through your traumatic past. So some of the curriculum we use is Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the 5 love languages, because a lot of these guys, they don't understand how to have healthy relationships because they haven't been taught that. Effective parenting, communication skills. And our program is unique that we serve not only the prisoners or the inmates, but we serve their families on the outside. So we are working to create a counseling situation to where the inmate can call in from inside the prison and their family member or loved one into a phone line, and a counselor can counsel both of them so that they can learn healthy relationship skills and practices, and parenting as well.
Is that actually, you have support around that?
I have talked to one therapist, so we have some people that are involved. As you know already, teletherapy has already been around for some time. My degree is in marriage and family therapy, so I actually did a lot of therapy. I worked in a shelter, did a lot of family counseling and things of that nature. So inmates are put into situations upon reentry where the family may be toxic and the inmate has moved forward in life. They understand a lot of skills, but they're set back into a toxic environment. And recidivism is high as a result of that.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, thanks a lot. Maybe we'll continue in that mode. But let's have Kent join us and Paul. And we're giving it a quick time to you, Kent, 30 seconds, and Paul, just to say why you're here. Kent, you want to go?
I was incarcerated for 39 months in the federal system. Got out 3 years ago. It was a wake-up experience, and that has me say that the system needs to alter. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you. And Paul, can you talk?
I'm Paul Sheldon. I work on greening America's prisons. I've visited about 20 prisons in the last 10 or 15 years. And I have a program called Wisdom of Dreaming, How to Be Free in Your Dreams, that's offered in 6 institutions in 4 states. I'm the development director for Golden Rule Reentry, a trauma-informed organization that helps formerly incarcerated people get reconnected to community in Medford, Oregon, where we've raised just over $2 million in the last 2 years to provide housing and support services for formerly incarcerated folks.
Thanks, Paul.
And I think Denny's back,
Oh, Denny can talk?
I think.
Denny?
Maybe not.
Okay.
When he
Well-
logged off and logged back on, I thought he'd got that resolved.
All right. Well, and then who else is joining us? The Flowers.
Teresa or James?
Oh, it's James. Hi. James, if you're talking, we can't hear you. And if you could share 30 seconds while you're here.
Oh, sure. I'm here because I've been involved in the conversation about transforming not only the lives of people who've been incarcerated, but the system itself for 20 years. And I see this as a huge opportunity to network and connect and build this conversation.
Yeah, thank you. And James is part of an organization called Another Way to Go. Maybe you could we could share that briefly in a minute or two. So basically, this is who we are. We didn't all say what state we're from. We're from different states. Mark's from New Jersey. I'm in Texas. James, where are you?
I'm in Pennsylvania. But Another Way to Go is primarily East Coast.
East Coast. Adrian's in Tennessee. Mark's Robert's in Colorado. Kent's in, Cat's running around. Kent's in state of Washington. Tony and Peg and Karen are in California. No, Karen's in Texas, sorry. And Elizabeth's in Florida. So.
And Paul's in Oregon.
Oh, sorry, Paul. Thank you. Yeah, so we're dedicated. We've been doing this a long time, and it does take something. This is not an issue that's really in the forefront of everybody's lives. And we have some excellent speakers that on November 13th, we're gonna get a chance to hear all of them. But right
23rd.
now, 23rd, sorry, what did I say, the 13th? Yeah. And we'll talk a little bit about them. I honestly did not prepare that much, or really at all. Somebody's on a go. I don't know who that is. The phone person? Thanks. But yeah, let's just have a conversation to just talk about the effects, which Aku brought up, of being incarcerated and getting out. We're going to do that. Let's do it for at least 20 minutes or, 10 to, and then, we may start switching gears at that point to talk about the conference in more detail. And anybody can put, raise their hand to say anything they want about what they hope from the conference, what they see from talking to people that's been incarcerated or have their experience in the past of having been associated with people who've been incarcerated. But Aku, if we go with Aku about the trauma, maybe we'll start with that. Could you tell us more about when you say you said you lost your son? Is that I'm assuming he passed away?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, he passed away from drugs, and that trauma was my son was 27 years old, so we were really close. We've been on tour together. I'm involved in entertainment as well. We did a lot of events and activities together. We were just in a film together, part of a movie that was shot in 2021. My son died in 2022. So there's a film that was shot in Chicago called The Wizard 2020. It was a remake of The Wiz. And so we were just in that movie together in 2021. And so, when he died, you're not allowed to be able to go to your kid's funeral, right? So you don't get to experience that. On top of that, I have other children, and they were dealing with the loss of their brother. And me not being able to comfort them, one of my sons, my 22-year-old, went into a state of depression. And he actually wanted to commit suicide. And I remember talking to him while I was in prison.
We're getting that echo, sorry.
I don't know who that is.
Neil, just mute. There you go.
I remember talking to him while I was in prison to try to comfort him so that he doesn't have to think, that life needs to be over because he missed his brother, and it was his big brother. And so that was a difficult situation. The powerlessness that you feel for not being able to be there for your loved ones is a very difficult thing while you're in prison. Because all you can do is lean on prayer. That's really, you have to strong trust for God because you don't have anything else. If something is your kid is going through something, or if someone tries to threaten your child, or there's some violence that happened, you can't do anything about it but pray. So that was very difficult for me. And that's what sent me into my depression. And then also not being able to grieve while I was in prison, because you're dealing with so much trauma and things around you. It was a very big culture shock. Now, mind you, my background is I was a commissioner for 2.5 years. I was a successful business owner, and then I end up in prison, and I don't know nothing about prison. So people are telling you things, how systems go. You're not getting the right information. So it was very traumatic. I seen, abuse, things of that nature. The first hour when I went into prison, there was a guy I was in Beto unit, and there was a guy that was threw off the third row of the prison. So that's within the first hour I was in prison. So
that's from a height, you're saying? From a height he was thrown?
Yeah, the third level. 3 row is what they call it.
With tiers of cells?
Yeah, three rows of cells. Yeah. So that was my first hour I was in prison. When I got to my cell, someone was killed. So I find myself in this situation. I'm like, what in the world is going on? This is, and then that night I could hear a guy screaming from his cell, like, I promise I won't do it again. And he was just getting beat up. So it was surreal. It was a surreal moment for me. Right? Because I'm like, wow, this is like a movie. Is this really happening? And then the way the guards treat you, cussing you out, getting in your face. I'm literally trying to ask a question, and they're like, get the F back, get back, you be this. And I'm like, whoa. I remember I just froze at how the guard was talking to me. And the other inmates were like, I'm older, so they call me School. School, get out the way. I'm like, is this happens every day? Is this how they talk to you? I was just, my mind was just in shock. Literally, I stood there and they were yelling at me and I didn't know how to move. So I was like, wow, this is normal. And they're like, yeah. And then I remember going to Chow and they gave us a thick piece of salami that had a piece of ice on it. So the food wasn't even thawed out. And you got 2 slices of bread. And I asked the guard, I said, are you serious? Like, we're supposed to eat this frozen meat? And they're like, do you want to eat or not? And the guy behind me is like, hey, you don't want that, School? I'll take it. So, I'm like, no. So I didn't eat for a few weeks because the food was just horrible. There are rats inside the chow hall, literally a rat's nest at the bottom of the chow line and rats on the ceiling, and they're moving like the rats don't exist. I'm like, this place can't be passing the health inspection. I owned a restaurant for a while. So I'm like, who are they paying under the table to pass the health inspection? It's impossible. The rats are right in there with the food.
Where was this?
At Beto.
Really?
I was on 2 row. The windows are busted out. So I got there in February of 23. It was so cold, my feet could not thaw out. This is no exaggeration. The wind, the cold air was just blowing in. And I remember trying to go to sleep and I was so cold. And I had my blanket and my jumper wrapped around my feet and I could not get warm. And I'm like, wow, these conditions cannot be allowed. But it's like the prison system is almost like its own government, its own country. Like they run on their own rules because people on the outside don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
and the mistreatment that's happening. And so, yeah, even when they were doing count, I remember they were doing count. The prisoners were actually doing count.
Tell us what that is for people who don't know.
Okay, so count is when you check on the welfare of prisoners, that the correctional officers are supposed to go cell to cell, ask for your name and your number to make sure you're all right. And if you need any assistance and if there's any crime or anything going on. So at Beto, the officers would give the count sheet to the inmates and they were doing count. So that means if you were dead for a few days, they're not going to know what's happening to you. If you're beat up, if you're being harassed, if someone's taking your food or taking your belongings, they're not going to know because they're not doing count. So they literally would do count the inmates would do count in about 5 or 4 minutes. And they say, oh yeah, everything's all good. And the officer say, oh, okay, thanks. I said, wow, this is crazy. So there was just so much. I mean, I got a book coming out in December, just talking about my experience because now I've become an advocate, right? A huge advocate in the fact of educating people about the realities of prison because I have no prior experience with a criminal background. I didn't have that. I was a huge advocate. I did street outreach. Like I said, counseling. I was a youth counselor, case manager, homeless advocate, things of that nature. So I had no prior experience. So I feel like it's my duty to educate people on the realities of what prison entails. And some of the things and what we believe how prison is, it's not that way. Like everybody gets treated wrong. It's not that blacks get treated wrong more than whites and all that. That wasn't my experience. We're all getting dogged out in there, and a lot of it comes down to money. If you ain't have no money, you're going to get treated bad. Money create a level playing field when it comes to the prison and judicial system.
So are you saying there's a lot of corruption? Like how does the money help? So
well, money gives you access to things you may need, hygiene products, things of that nature that you normally wouldn't get access to. I got a foot fungus while at Beto because I didn't have any shower slides. And it takes you so long for your family to put money on your books. I ended up getting a foot fungus that I am just now getting healed. And this is from February of 23. It's just, my feet are just now starting to heal because I was able to get access to the proper communication. But there was some days I cannot walk. That's how bad my feet were.
Did they have medical help or not much? Or
They have medical help, but they're not getting you what you need. I remember going to the nurse and they're saying we don't have antibiotics, which I knew was a lie. So then I was using commissary to buy antibiotics off of other inmates, you know, which you're not supposed to do. But I was in so much pain. I mean, it literally felt like somebody was hitting my foot with a hammer. I mean, I could barely sleep. My whole leg would just be throbbing with pain. And I was trying to figure out different things, different remedies, but I got that because of being barefoot in the showers, which again, I wasn't told an orientation into prison. Don't take a shower with your shoes off. All these things you're supposed to know because the guys and other people that, man, you did that. I'm like, man, I don't know. I don't have a PhD in prison experience. Like, what are you talking about? I'm not knowing the proper process because all I had was my regular one pair of shoes. And I'm thinking if I take a shower in those, I'm going to walk around with wet feet all the time. So I didn't know. And so there's just a lot of things like that you are naive to when you go into prison, which has made me, again, want to become an advocate because you don't have organizations that educate people specifically around their prison experience when you are new prisoners. There's not one organization that does that. So I want to be the one that does that. And that foundation is going to be called Never Forgotten, where we help people when they first come into prison, understand how to navigate prison. How do you help your family members set up the phone? Like that's a whole process in and of itself. Because if you're dealing with people that don't have any experience with supporting a prisoner, how are you going to know how to set up Securus? It took certain family members months to figure that out. They didn't understand why I was working, why it wouldn't work, how to put money on the books, how to not put money on the books, things of that nature. It was crazy trying to navigate.
How do you think it's affected you now? Can you step back, or it's just you're too much in it still? How long you been out now?
Since May 15th of this year. So just 5 months going on. Yeah, 5 months will be tomorrow, my anniversary, my 5-month anniversary. How it's affected me in a lot of positive ways. Going to prison was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. I was severely out of touch with what people have been to experience, what they were going through. I was naive. I was very naive. I didn't understand the struggle. You know, I've seen some movies and stuff, but I didn't understand what people were actually going through because I didn't have anybody personally that was going through that situation. So I was naive to it, right? So that's one thing. Second, made me much more appreciative for the little things in life. Man, in prison, you can get a Snicker bar and it would change your whole month. It's the little bitty things, one small bag of Doritos, and you'll be having that memory for like 30 days, right? I used to have, I used to love to shop. I had 2 closets to myself of clothes and, you know, all kind of useless things, spending money on things I really didn't need, right? Well, in prison, you can't spend more than $225 a month. No matter if you got hundreds of millions of dollars, if there's an even playing field, you can go to commissary twice a month. That's it. It doesn't matter how much money you have. So we're all equal in there, right? So you can only spend so much and you can only have so much. So you learn to appreciate the small things in life while in prison. And that appreciation keeps me humbled which is why I continue to go teach every Sunday. I'm reminded. I tell people, even if things aren't going well, and Neil, I've explained to him, I was kicked out of my place. Things have happened in my life since I've been out. But there's no room for me to complain because I know some guys, when I go on Sunday, they're still in that cell, right? They may have been on lockdown. Sometimes they cut the water off. You have no water for it may be 2-3 weeks. Literally no water. So the toilet is full for 2 or 3 weeks. And the smell is horrendous. So just being able to go outside and smell the fresh air, the value of that, I can't even put it into words. I don't take those kind of things for granted. Being able to call my kids. I spend like an hour on the phone with my kids now, FaceTiming, because just the idea that I can freely talk to them is just amazing. Because when we would go on lockdown, we might be on lockdown for 2 weeks. I'm not talking to nobody. Literally. The phones get cut off at 10 p.m. If you lost your mom and you went on lockdown, there's nobody you can talk to. It doesn't matter. The phones are off. So
you said the phones are off at 10 p.m. or they're off altogether?
10 p.m. But if you went on lockdown, the phones are going to be off for 2 weeks. So in that 2 weeks, no matter what the crisis has happened, you have to. I was told by an elderly gentleman before I went to prison. He said, you got 2 choices. Either you're going to learn how to maintain your peace or you're going to learn how to go crazy. Because life is going to happen. Life is going to happen. The crises are going to happen. So you have to learn how to trust in God and hold your peace, because the crises are going to happen and not going to stop. But what do? You can't do anything. If your kid called you and said, hey, somebody just tried to rob me or beat them up and the phones went off and they went on lockdown, you can't talk to them for 2 weeks. You have to maintain your peace or you're going to go crazy. You don't have a choice.
Can you write letters
Yeah, you can write letters, but they may come pick up the mail once a week. Again, that's a whole process. It may take 2 weeks for your family member to get a letter. Then they have to write you back. And now it takes you 2 weeks to get it back. That's 3 or 4 weeks that went by. Life has changed a lot in 30 days. Yeah. So, you have to be in your peace. And I had to learn that in there. And we would have this time, we would tell the other inmates, we would be talking to each other, man, it's never really that bad. It's never really that bad.
Let me ask you a couple of questions, then I'm going to open it up to let other people ask you. And I thank you so much, Aku, for sharing all you have. And I know you got more to share. Let's see, the question. So you said you learned a lot. There was a good experience in that regard. Not sure. Let's see what I was thinking of asking. Well, if you could change, I guess I could think of a lot of questions. If you could change the way if you could only change 2 things about being inside, what would they be? 2 things, and you had the power to do that. Just curious what you would pick.
That's a great question. If I could change 2 things. One is that the prisoners would get treated like human beings. That would be one. That's a huge one, right? I would say second would be the auditing and governance of how the prisons are ran. Those 2 things would change your whole experience. Because again, prisoners are like their own country. There's no way they're getting away with so many of things they're doing. And passing food inspection. Like I still am traumatized by the food. I mean, rats in the kitchen. How are you passing food inspection? It's impossible. I mean, and then the quality of food that they were giving us, I mean, oh my gosh. Sometimes I just couldn't eat. I couldn't do it. So yeah, those are the 2 things I would change.
Yeah, that second one's a big one, but I wanna give people like just 10 minutes, because I do want to shift maybe 10 or 15 at the most, because we are going to shift at the hour. We're going to talk about the conference. But I know you opened up a lot of things and a lot of people may have questions, but we're definitely going to keep it to 15 at the most. So who else had questions? Because I was hogging the space. Go ahead, Julia. And then Karen.
First of all, thank you so much for sharing.
Sure.
I was thinking, you said that they get away with treating people so badly because nobody really knows what's going on and nobody's really holding these prisons accountable for violations like what happened with the kitchen and the rats. So if you don't mind me asking, what prison was it?
Oh, that was Beto.
What's that?
In Texas, right?
In Texas. It's called Beto.
How do you spell that?
Beto is Beto.
Okay, thank you.
And it's a common thing known, these prisons, I'm talking from roaches to rats. This is a common thing that's known in the various prisons. Like guys are fighting rats out of their cell. They're waking up. You're getting indoctrinated. Hey, keep your commissary up in the air because the rats, you'll wake up. They're eating on your food. That's like a common thing. It's not even rare.
Oh my goodness, that's awful. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Karen, thank you.
Thank you for sharing. I wanted to ask, when you came out, did you have any trouble like with self-esteem? Because that's one of the things that affected my son. When he came out, he had very, very, very low self-esteem.
I didn't personally have that. Actually, my self-esteem increased when I went into prison.
Mm.
I kind of consider myself to be somewhat of a cowboy. So, so there's some, like I said, it was one of the best experiences. What I loved about prison, let's talk about some of the good things.
Okay.
And I was just talking to another guy about this yesterday. One of the things I miss about prison is the accountability and respect between the inmates. We have gotten to a place in America where I can say something about Neil and I'm not held accountable. Or I could do something, or I could even insinuate. In prison, if I say, hey, I think Neil took my soups, that statement is not taken lightly. One, I'm going to have to make sure I have evidence before I make a statement, because I'm going to be held extremely accountable. And if I'm talking to other inmates and I have an issue with Neil, they will put me on blast and say, hey, cool. What were you saying about Neil? Like you said, you had an issue with him, right? Well, we need to deal with that as men. So the level of accountability and respect is something that's so amazing in prison, and we are missing that in the free world, big time. Well, think about social media. People can say stuff about people. They have no evidence. They can do things. And they're not held accountable for their actions. And in prison, that does not exist. It doesn't matter the race, creed, or color.
Now, they created that themselves, right?
Yes.
The inmates created
the inmates. That's correct.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. And I miss that in the world because I've experienced some things opposite of that. I just had an experience with a guy that was saying some things about me to other individuals that were totally false.
Yeah.
And he still to this day has not had a conversation with me, but he's talking to people around me. In prison, that does not fly.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have to come talk to me if you said something about me.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay.
Yeah, I know Dana has her hand up too. Thank you, Karen.
Okay, where are you? I'm trying to get your name, brother.
It's Aku. He's a business doctor.
Blessings. I wanted to ask you a question. Was kind of a two-part question. What, sorry, I lost my voice this weekend. What do you think the percentage of Black men were in your institution?
We definitely were the majority. I don't know what that percentage was. So I really can't say. Yeah, I don't know what that percentage was.
But the majority is your assumption or how it occurred for you.
Yeah, the majority were people of color, definitely.
Black people or people of color? I'm asking.
Black people, and then secondarily would be Hispanics. Yeah.
Got it. And I want to see the question. I just didn't want to miss the opportunity to speak to you, and thank you for being here and speaking to a lot of truths that is eye-opening, right? So we already got that you're making an impact in the world and why this group was formed. There's a lot of communication, whether you're really aware of it or not, but you can probably see now that you are out around prison reform, around what's wrong with prison, not so much to the things that are real, like you're speaking to how your life is affected. Like you get incarcerated for, and I'm getting to the question, I'm talking it out. You get incarcerated for a crime or an offense or alleged, and then you go in and suffer punishment on top of the punishment. I wanted to know, when the communications go around, when people are representing programs, when you hear about offerings that help formerly incarcerated and reentry programs, do you feel like now that you're out that you see representation that speaks for the Black population in prison? Are we doing enough to help Black people is my question.
Oh, not at all. Let me tell you, there's going to be so I've been in entertainment for over 35 years. Again, I know a lot of people, a lot of celebrities and things of that nature. My forum that I'm going to create called Never Forgotten, I am going to put a lot of people on blast. So probably a lot of people are going to be upset about what I have to say. I am very disappointed. I only knew of one organization while I was in Sanders Estes that was a Black organization. Staggering to me. I'm very disappointed and I'm upset. Because when you have these large ministries, churches, 50,000 people and things of that nature, and you barely have a prison ministry, are you serious right now? Are you serious? With all these organizations and nonprofits that are getting all this money, and there is a very small percentage that is involved, it is very disheartening. Because in prison, like what I want to do is, in prison, $100 a month will change an inmate's life. Seriously. $100 a month. Literally will change a prisoner's life and experience. They can get hygiene and things of that nature. So you think about what $100 a month, how it changes somebody's life dramatically in prison as opposed to being out here in the free world. $100 a month is not going to do a whole lot for you. But in prison, that's life-changing. So we can adopt a prisoner and change his life. Now he can talk to his family. He can communicate. He can write. He can have hygiene, deodorant, things of this nature with just $100 a month. But the lack of representation from organizations with people of color is really disheartening. I'm very disappointed. And I am going to be going around and talking to these organizations because I don't understand how in several prisoners, there's no organization from TD Jakes, the Creflo Dollar, all these other large ministries. I'm flabbergasted how you're not in 5, 10, 20 prisons.
They do have some programs once you're out, but not inside, I think.
Yes. The Bible says, don't forget me in the prison. This is, I understood when I went to prison why the Bible says that. Some of our greatest leaders are in prison. Some of our greatest influencers are in prison. That's one of the reasons I started Better Dads. I had all the leaders of the prison in my one classroom. The one came to me and said, how did you achieve this? I said, but these are leaders, they're misled. But these are the ones that can lead 1,000 young men, because those young men are going to follow that leader. They're going to follow that person. He just didn't know what to do. He did things the wrong way. But now I'm turning those same individuals into learning the right thing. And they're changing their whole family structure. They're leading their families the right way. The prisoner, the warden is recognizing and seeing families change because those individuals that decide to go against the grain, those are the leaders. They're just leading in the wrong way.
Let me ask you, because I want to shift gears, and I hope you stay while we talk about, but it's up to you. We're going to talk about the conference, but not to throw a real wrench in, but I guess maybe to throw a wrench in. I mean, there are people in prison that are violent too, Aku. I mean, we can't deny that. Now maybe they kept them out of, because you were in a special program. I don't know how, I know you weren't in it the whole time, but the prison entrepreneurship program. But I mean, imagine you encountered, somebody threw that person off that tier, level 3. And I hope it wasn't a correction officer, but I mean, it could have been, but
No.
Yeah, but so, I mean, weren't you also afraid? Do you think people need to be locked up, or you don't believe people do?
No, I believe there's some people that need to be locked up. I think rehabilitation needs to be in the forefront. See, you just can't lock somebody up and expect their behavior to be different. That's not even logical.
Right.
See, I'm going to talk to some of these people and they can have all the degrees in the world, but I've done counseling, I've shifted behaviors, so you can't pull the wool over me. They didn't let the right one get incarcerated by letting me get incarcerated, because I'm not going to hear none of that. At the end of the day, there's no data that shows by putting someone in a box, they're going to come out and just automatically be a better person. That's just illogical. That makes no logical sense. So therefore, the model is broken. You're using the same model from 100 years ago. And then so people come out and they're not better. So what are you doing? You're misappropriating funds. If we have a score and we're saying you're supposed to accomplish this goal as a result of having money, and you don't accomplish it, that's not an opinion. Those are numbers. Numbers don't lie. Humans can say all kinds of things. So therefore, that's why I'm not a person that complains. I'm about action. So my model with Better Dads is proving I had some of the worst guys in my program, and for 4.5 months, they did nothing wrong. Because in my program, you cannot get in trouble to be in my program.
That's your rule?
Yeah, that's my rule. You can't. But I'm holding them accountable, and I'm bringing back to them, you said you want to be there for your son. So if you want to be there for your son, if you want to go back into your kid's life, there's certain things you can't do. You can't get in trouble. You have to become a better person. Do you know how to be a dad? Has anyone taught you? No, you don't. No one's taught you. My dad didn't teach me. My dad was a pimp. I don't come from a good background. I was bagging up weed when I was 6 and 7 years old. I was exposed to crime and violence. So I had to learn a lot on my own. I didn't have a role model to show me how to be a better dad. I had to learn through trial and error.
So I'm going to ask you a last question, then we're going to switch gears soon. Joe, somebody asked me to ask you, do you have a curriculum that you follow? How do you, could anybody people, can they join in the middle, or they have to start at the beginning and go through 4.5 months? And do you have could you mentioned a whole bunch of things you're teaching. So how does it sounds like a lot to me.
Well, one to ask you, yes, there is a curriculum. I created the whole syllabus while I was in prison. That was the only way the warden would approve it. So thank God, my background, I've created a lot of different programs. I have national, international awards for some of the programs that I created. If you look up the Youth Violence Prevention Initiative, I was a co-author of that initiative. So I've gotten a lot of awards for the work that I've done when it comes to violence prevention and gang mediation and things of that nature. I used to be in the midst of gang brawls with 100 gang members against another 100 gang members. I retrained police officers and things of that nature about gang mediation and conflict mediation. So I have that experience. So when I put this curriculum together, along with a syllabus that follows the TDC, which is the Texas Department of Criminal Justice protocol, there's a curriculum protocol, and I created a curriculum and a syllabus that meets that protocol, along with the books, and I got books donated, and then there's questions that are answered each class. guest speakers that come in, and then they have things that they have to fill out. They have homework that they have to turn in, and that's the way they grow. And you can only miss 2 classes, and we don't waver on that. And I'm the only program where you can only miss 2 classes in the whole prison. I'm very strict because some of these guys have not been held accountable before, so they don't know what that is.
How long do you go in? How long is like each Sunday? How many hours you spend?
I'm there from 8:30 to about 12:30. 4 hours.
That's a good time.
Yeah.
Well, this is I want to switch gears, but I want to thank you, really, really thank you, and ask you if you would stay with us. And actually, I want to welcome Judy. I didn't Judy and Dave Flattery who joined. But if you would stay with us and add your energy just to our mission, to this conference, because it's some, I could get the it's very dynamic at the very least, you know, because it's still fresh in your space. What, less than 6 months or something?
Yes.
And you're very articulate. I look forward to your book. We could talk more about that. But yeah, if you can, do you think you could stay for the next 30 minutes?
That's overstood, Neil. I'm here. This has changed my life forever.
I want you to come back. So thank you.